Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about Hogwarts Legacy after a couple of days with the game. When you hear something like that, you may think, oh nice man, he got a review code. No, my good friend, those were in slim supply it would seem. So I had to pack my bags and head over to New Zealand for a day, start Hogwarts Legacy on the 6th, and then, here on the 7th, play some more Hogwarts Legacy in the States. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to talk about this game because I believe I come from what I would say, based on what I've seen online, is a pretty unique perspective, which is I'm not a Harry Potter fan at all. Like, I haven't even finished all of the movies. I could not get into the books to save my life. Like, this series just bounces off of me, does not compute, does not click. So I was wondering, is the game going to allow me to bypass all that, still enjoy what looks to be a pretty compelling open world, even though I'm not into the source material? Well, I aim to answer that question today, along with delivering my thoughts. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are new here and you are interested in game reviews, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. Now let's start at the top with customization. I actually like the customization in this game, from the face to the hair options to the gender options. It's all fantastic, but perhaps what really swept me off my feet was the wand customization. I really liked how you could change the wood, the length, the handle. I thought all of this was really great and surprising. Now, back to the player customization, what I will warn you is that the male voice in this game sounds about as enthused as watching paint dry. I mean, it is a pretty dry performance, and I definitely had some thoughts about restarting as a female character, but I will get into why I did not. But the customization options here are pretty good. You'll see in your cutscenes it has those, I call them RPG moments, where my character looks so wild and out of pocket compared to the average Hogwarts student. I thought that was pretty awesome. It kind of captures that spirit very well. Now, the story starts off with a, what I would say is pretty slow opening if you're not really into the source material. So it turns out your character has ties to an ancient magic, which you're seeing traces of throughout the world. And this leads you into a goblin known as Ranrock, who is leading a rebellion. You're trying to find out why that's the case, but also why you have these ties to said ancient magic. So these two storylines effectively intersect, and in those moments in between, you get that more whimsical comedic touch at times that I do remember from some of the couple of movies I did see in the Harry Potter franchise. That's here in this game, such as when I was in the herbology class and the mandrakes started screeching to break the glass in the classroom and the music was really picking up. It's at those moments that you can feel it's very true to the source material. However, one thing I did find that was kind of disappointing is actually the sorting hat sequence. The sorting hat just asks you 2 questions and then picks your house based off that. Now, you can select your house from there, but I was hoping for something like Fallout 3's GOAT, where it's a nice list of questions, or something more along the lines of maybe Pokemon Mystery Dungeon's questionnaire. I think those are great examples of asking the player things and creating a character based off of a survey. To have the sorting hat just be 2 questions and that's it, after everything else I felt in the intro was so slow and so elongated, I was like, wow, this is the point where I feel like they should have taken their time. But maybe a little nitpicky there for many Harry Potter fans. It's cool that it's even there. Now, your boy, he's got the green on, green and black. Yes, Slytherin, that's right. Evil Matty. That's what I was rocking this playthrough. Let's do it. Like I mentioned, those opening hours I found to be pretty glacial. It wasn't until finally I got into the open world that I stopped my yawning. And I'm not trying to be extreme here. It's just that it was a valuable lesson in fan service being a very compelling factor for particular games. Because let's take an example that would work for me. I am a diehard Star Wars fan. If you were to take this game and make it into Star Wars, I totally see the perspective people are coming from, that this game is legit. But in the early hours, I was just not seeing it. It wasn't until finally I broke beyond the grounds of Hogwarts and out into the open world that I really started to love on this game. Because as a non-Harry Potter fan, when I learned that, okay, the fan service is what keeps those early hours engaging, I'm like, what's there for me? And for me, it was really the crafty puzzles and collecting that ended up being my favorite part. So something like as simple as doing a Merlin trial and messing around with a stone ball and trying to use Accio to pull it down a hill. To me, that was great. Like, that was fun. It reminded me a bit of Breath of the Wild, where I'm playing with the game's physics. To me, that's when it clicked, when it was at its most video gamey nature. Another place where I felt it really clicked, and I would have loved to see a lot more of it in the early going, was combat. The combat in this game is tough, but it's also pretty fantastic. And I found that the most surprising aspect of all. And I think that's why I was having some trouble getting into it, because you're going to class, you're unlocking mechanics, you do like one brief one-on-one battle for the class. It's just very, again, elongated. But for those of you who are Harry Potter fans, you're going to be soaking it all in. It's like me roaming around Coruscant and doing the day-to-day life in Star Wars. I would be soaking it in too. So it's not a negative for the game. It's more so a warning for you non-Harry Potter fans out there that you may stumble a bit in those early goings. But once you get into the combat, I guarantee you're going to appreciate this game because there is so much happening here. So it starts off with you attending these classes and completing assignments for professors. Now, these assignments are things like use a fire spell on an enemy 5 times to go collect this. They're fetch questy, but they kind of work as your professor's giving you busy work and you come back to them and they go, okay, we're going to teach you Expelliarmus now. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And you do a little hand motion through the analog stick and do a little QTE to learn it for the first time. I think that buildup is cool. Then you go out into combat and you start to realize there's such cool combos you can put together. So certain enemies will have colored shields around them. Let's say you see someone with a yellow shield. That means that Levioso will be the thing that breaks that shield. Once you float them up in the air, they're open to attacks. So you can float them up in the air, hit them with a bunch of basic attacks, then Accio them, keep them in the air, keep attacking them, and then Descendo them down into the ground. Some of the combos that you can pull off here are legit, and the spell library is surprisingly vast. Beyond that though, there's dodging, there's a parry system with Protego. You'll literally like cast a shield around you. If you time it just right, you'll be able to stupefy someone and blast them back. So there is a very rewarding parrying system that kind of tells you to play patiently. You see, the second I stopped rushing enemies and just playing a nice conservative game was when I started to see some real return on investment in my character. Because otherwise, quite frankly, I was getting destroyed. But this game also encourages the use of environments. You have to pay attention to what's around you. Like I can pull in barrels and crates and do massive damage. And you can also tie those into combos. And as you're doing these combos, these enemies are gonna drop ancient magic that you're gonna pick up. And then you can just unleash this spell that eviscerates them into dust. I mean, it's insane. When you blend that in with additional tools that you can drop in combat, like little mandrake turrets or using stealth in the game and sneaking around, there's a lot happening here. And it actually feels really good to play. And what I loved is that it was tough for me to grapple. Like I'm still getting the hang of it. I'm still struggling with it. I'm not an expert with it. And I love that feeling because I think we're such a one-note industry at times doing the same thing so often. I love that this combat is so unique. It is definitely, to me, one of the defining elements that makes this game interesting. But it comes with what I think is a major caveat. You see, the systems and mechanics here are beautifully designed and interwoven where it is a compelling system on its own. Perhaps what I would view as the game's Achilles heel to the combat is the gear system. I don't like that this exists. Not because I have this developmental philosophy that every game doesn't need RPG mechanics. That may be true, but I need it to be necessary. Here it feels unnecessary. When you have such fantastic mechanics here in combat, I really didn't feel like we needed things like what kind of robes you can wear, what kind of headgear you can wear, what kind of eyepieces you can wear. The customization is great, and I understand to some people's point why they find it vital, because it obviously makes it your character. But to me, you start to explore off the beaten path and you find these extremely high-level enemies, and it's no longer about exploiting weaknesses, it's just about what's your gear level. And I feel like that takes a bit away from combat when it's so good. It is unfortunate in that regard, in my eyes. Does it destroy the game? No, but it kind of limits the exploration you can do, at least initially. And because of that, I think it hurts the game, because I believe the game's at its best when I am just roaming the open world, fighting enemies, and doing side quests. Some of the side quests in this game are pretty simple, like I found someone's astrolabe out in the middle of a lake, and that was really it. But some of them involve you doing pretty cool puzzles and going through unique dungeons. I really like that, taking out goblin camps, because again, when it leads you to the combat, that's when the game's thriving, because I'm having the most fun doing that. So to me, the side quests and the exploration are the superstar here. I didn't find the story all that interesting, probably due to my non-Harry Potter fan nature. And I find the gear system a little debilitating to combat, but there are a lot of things happening in this game. You see, I also mentioned collecting things is a lot of fun. These are moments like when you see a floating piece of paper around Hogwarts and you bring it in with Accio. The collectathon nature of it reminds me a bit of Amazing Spider-Man 1 on 360 and PS3, where you'll just be web swinging around and you'll just see a comic book and you'll just press, I think, LB and RB at the same time, and you'll zip yourself to it and snag it. And there were like 700 pages just littered around the open world that popped up whenever. You didn't really have to go out of your way to look for them most of the time. This game has some of that energy, and I actually like that collectathon nature because you're just kind of jogging around, just Accio, pull it in. All right, cool, let's see what we got here. There's other times you'll use Revelio and reveal hidden details in the environment. I also thought that was really cool. Again, this game thrives when you're just exploring and fighting. I love it when we're doing all of that. And that really does allow me to highlight some of the unique open world activities. I love how I stumbled upon a crypt in the Forbidden Forest, and when I was inside there, I was struggling a bit to find my way out until I used the skulls and bones of enemies who had passed in here to build a stair set to get out. That was really, really cool for me. And I also appreciate just the puzzle nature of the game. I think for a younger audience, it may be tough at times because I consider myself decent at games and I was getting stuck in certain locations going, okay, wait, how do I get out of here now? But I like that the game has me thinking. There are no, to my knowledge, climbing the towers, unlocking waypoints. You just jog around the world and find stuff that's pretty unique to the game. Of course, there's your basic enemy camps and whatnot, but it does have a true sense of identity. You don't really feel, say, a Ubisoft completionist energy in this game. It feels very much true to itself. Now, while you're out on these missions, you can have companions join you. You can also choose dialogue options that kind of tailor your character to what you want them to be. It's not some hard and fast morality system with major choice and consequence, but you could be mean to people. You can choose who comes with you on these missions. So certain dialogue stretches do change, and I like that. It kind of tailors the experience to you a little bit more. I think given that it's a ambitious open world action RPG, does come with some caveats, particularly on the tech end of things. This game is not polished to a shine. In fact, it's pretty obvious it's a very buggy video game. Now, has there been any crashes in my case or the game failing me completely and I can't get to my objective? As of right now, no. But there are a noteworthy amount of bugs in just 10 plus hours of gameplay. For example, there's this weird facial flickering bug when I was talking to Professor Fig. Anytime I speak to him, this is happening. At first I turn a blind eye to it, but when it's happening every time, it's extremely distracting. There are also loading doors, yes, loading doors in Hogwarts, where you'll like approach them and you'll see this swirling symbol on the door and it'll stop you. This is particularly jarring because you know what's happening there. And given that the door is like you touch to open it rather than you press a button to open it, it's not like something such as Dead Space, which intelligently uses those hidden loading screens where the level has not loaded until you go up to the environment and press A, and then while you see that swirling opening sign is when it's actually loading, and you don't think about it at all. Meanwhile, here with Hogwarts Legacy, because every door opens via just bumping into it as the character, you feel those loading screens more, and it does abruptly stop you at times. And it's those moments that it doesn't feel too polished to a shine. Down to even frame rate dips. Again, this was based in Hogwarts. I found this part of the game just to not be put together all that well. I mean, I was running around the open world, I was fine, but when I was in Hogwarts, man, there were a lot of tech issues here, and probably because they spared no detail on the environments here. There's no one room that looks the same. There's no one wall that looks the same, and that's a severe undertaking. That's a lot of assets devoted to just one location. So I totally get why it takes the time to load, because there is so much happening here. It does have that maze-like nature to it as you see winding staircases, moving picture frames, stained glass, stone architecture. I mean, it's a beautiful interior design. They did a phenomenal job. So I understand why the invisible loading screens are happening more frequently here, but you should be aware that it is kind of jarring when you run into one door and you go right through it, and then you run into another door and for like 5 seconds you can't. Otherwise, there's the pretty rare, and in my experience on Series X, not super noticeable pop-in, but the game is solid all around. Like, I really did enjoy the time I've played with it thus far. The real question is, am I going to stick with it? That's a tough one to answer because I'm not a Harry Potter fan and I'm not in love with it, probably because I'm not one. You see, there are a lot of mechanics in this game that feel like, as I said at the start of this video, a AAA game with a Harry Potter coat of paint. Now, the open world activities are very much their own unique thing, and the more I get of those, the more I enjoy playing it. But, for example, you go to herbology class. I was very excited for this because I like the idea of going to class. I'm a huge Persona fan, and maybe my expectations were in the wrong place, but to be fair, Portkey and Avalanche didn't really talk much on like what was going to happen in the classes during the marketing cycle of the game. But I was hoping like I would really be going here and like gradually enhancing some type of skill set. But what ended up happening is they were like mini games to just unlock making potions, which is in every AAA game, like these crafting systems that are in every AAA game. And since I'm not a Harry Potter fan, there was no like luster there in the first place of like, oh, sweet, I'm in herbology class concocting all these potions. It's like, oh, okay, I need like 5 of these, 2 of these, and that's really it. But for other people, that flavor is everything. Again, I go back to my Star Wars example. If that was me there, in Coruscant blending these things, okay, yeah, like I'd be all over it. So you do need to be a Harry Potter fan to some extent, I feel, to fully appreciate it. But I think once you get beyond the grounds of Hogwarts, there is a lot there that you can appreciate. One thing I did like is that they make a lot of references to the world beyond, something I wasn't entirely aware of with Harry Potter. I just knew, as many of us, only about like Hogwarts, and that was really it. I never obviously studied the lore for it, so to hear references to other locations around the world, I thought was really nice. But yeah, it's a game that I think is really good. I think it's definitely worth looking into. The hype is justified here. Just if you're not a Harry Potter fan, I don't want to say be careful. It's not going to be a bad investment. Just you may not walk into it and enjoy it as on high of a level as someone who adores it, which I think for many of you was assumed already. But I'm just here kind of firming that up as someone who was trying to get into it and into the series in general through it. So I might stick with it. We'll see once I put some more time into it if I'm really going to hang around it. But right now it's like, oh, this is good, but I don't really love the IP, so I'm not thinking I'm going to be hanging around a super long time, but I'm at least going to beat it. So we'll see beyond that. Ladies and gentlemen, those are my thoughts on Hogwarts Legacy thus far. I look forward to seeing yours in the comments down below. What do you think of this game if you've played it through the deluxe edition? If you have not, are you excited for it? Are you not excited for it? How do you feel about it? Let me know down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.